Welcome here to the Star City Games. That's our Power 9 series. We're in the elimination rounds here. Well, 13 rounds of Vintage has led way to 8 players. Over 120 players showing up, making it the largest North American Vintage event in a long time.
It's hard to get cars together. All 8 of our top 8 competitors have a Lotus and all 5 Moxen.
No copies of Oath in the top 8 either. 4 shops, 4 blue decks. No Dredge making it either.
Yeah.
Josh starts Mox, Sapphire, and Tundra. You mentioned full sets of power in both decks. So I guess 2 mana on the opener, that's about average.
I like to refer to Mox Sapphire as good Mox. And part of why is this means you can represent mana drain in the first turn of the game.
Mox Jet into Sensei's Divining Top for Marzka.
Also a powerful start.
No copies of Mental Misstep from Lalo for the Sensei's Divining Top. He does play 4, so good on Nathan to sneak in the Divining Top past those. Once in play, there's not a clear answer for Divining Top on Josh's side. He'll just play through.
Yeah. And it gives you more looks at your busted nonsense.
Right.
Ancestral Recall, Treasure Cruise, digging through for that. I believe that was it's either Strip Mine or Wasteland.
Okay.
The one Strip Mine in the deck.
Yeah, went ahead and strip mined away the Underground Sea, so Nathan will make a Polluted Delta and pass back. When we look at these decks, on Joshua's side he has 8 mana producing lands. Looks like 9 on Nathan's deck. Nathan's deck actually does support Tolarian Academy, which Lalo's deck does not.
Yeah, a little bit heavier on the artifact theme. This is a Tinker deck.
Yeah.
Has Vault Key in the mix as well.
Yeah, Lalo's WinCon is really just a control deck. It's attrition. He'll go for Preordain after making Volcanic Island.
It's not the most exciting card. Frequently it is worth a Mental Misstep. Marzka does have a misstep floating around in the hand, though there are a lot of ones that are quite a bit more powerful. So I do like the patience there.
Do you have some thoughts on the types of cards that Nathan might be holding it for?
Ancestral Recall is a big one.
Sure. I suppose your opponent's missteps.
Yeah, fighting over things. Another reason is he has a Force of Will in hand, and I think it's his only blue card.
Nathan will spin top. He's found Time Walk, Blightsteel Colossus in the top 3. He has a fetch land, so he can likely crack that before he accidentally draws the Blightsteel.
Yeah, definitely don't want to draw the Blightsteel until you really have a few things on the battlefield. Time Walk doesn't actually do very much. It's similar to Explore if you're not activating Planeswalkers, attacking, doing anything of consequence.
Yeah, that was my thought.
It is a blue card for the Force of Will.
Okay.
Which is a decent floor.
He's going to go ahead and use that Explore, as you mentioned, Time Walk, cast here. And if that's the case, Ryan, you think we might just, it looks like just resolved. Joshua's not going to, on this board, he's not going to force to fight over Time Walk.
Yeah, fighting over that is just a 1-for-1 when there's cards that are much higher impact than this.
So with Time Walk cashed in, Nathan will have the next turn. He's going to crack another fetch land, and I believe spin the top. He's going to try to make the most of this extra turn.
Yep. Hopefully Blightsteel Colossus has made its way away from the top 3 cards of the deck.
Land. One of the lands is Library of Alexandria.
That's really good on turn 1 of the game, though. We're pretty light on cards in hand. I think just 3 currently for Marzka.
I mean, remember the Divining Top, in a way you could count it as a card. He could tap it to get up to that critical mass. He's going to draw Wheel of Fortune. Tap top, draw. And library's
Wheel
there.
of Fortune is a combination.
I do like that. There we go. Now we make the library and wheel. And now it's interesting that he wanted to cash in that top first. Now mana drain from Josh will get hit by Force of Will from Nathan. We are fighting over this Wheel of Fortune.
I mean, it's a huge game.
Yeah.
It's hard parity on the resolution, which is whatever, but then Nathan just has library, and he's already been through Josh's strip mine.
And it's going to resolve. So Yawgmoth's Will is lost for Nathan. Josh, we're getting a good look of mostly blue cards here. So that top is back into Nathan's hand. Library of Alexandria is now going to work. You mentioned, how do you feel about Wheel of Fortune? when you tap out for it, your opponent gets to play cards first. And with Josh as a Planeswalker deck.
Right. The thing, though, is in Vintage, what you care about is literally dying because everything that happens is so busted. You know you're playing against Jeskai Control, not something like Outcome Storm. So you're not just going to get run over. A Jace will generate some advantage, but Jace, it's not really clear if Jace is actually doing more than Library is doing.
I guess drawing cards is pretty easy. Jace isn't the only card that does it.
Yeah, Jace, it's brainstorming versus just drawing, so it is better in that sense. But they have to tap out for it.
And Josh, with his fresh hand, actually just passes the turn. Now, I have a question, Ryan. After this Wheel of Fortune, we haven't seen any Moxen from either player. You'd think some of them would have them in their hand. Is there a reason they might hold them back if they did?
No, second Moxen anyway. Both players have some kind of Mox.
Yeah, with their new fresh 7s. Neither,
Sure.
Is there a reason to hold that sort of thing back?
Well, for Nathan, he wanted to hold it just so he could activate the library on Lalo's turn. He wasn't going to do anything with Moxen mana there.
Okay.
I would be a little surprised if Lalo was hanging on to a Mox. Possibly a Black Lotus, you'd hang on to that one because you want to generally cast it on the turn where you're going to do something with the mana.
Gitaxian Probe from Lalo. Let's take a look. Jace the Mind Sculptor, Scalding Tarn, Notion Thief, Preordain, Mana Drain, and 2 Force of Wills.
These are solid holdings.
Yeah, remember there's a hidden 8th card under that with Library looming.
Right.
At what point does Nathan try to get this Notion Thief into play? He could try for it on this end step, but it means he wouldn't get to tap Library.
So he currently doesn't have a Dak Faden to combine with it. He has a Mana Drain that he's leaving up. Meanwhile, he wants to activate the Library. It's certainly worth more than casting the Notion Thief. Yeah. If your opponent casts something like Ancestral Recalls and like Brainstorm, where responding with Notion Thief becomes very good, and you can back it up with those Force of Wills, that's the window where you would actually want to cast it.
Off Probe, Josh draws into Mox Ruby, so it's up to 5 mana now. His deck does have 5 mana cards. Instead, there's Teferi's here. On top of that, of course, they all have Force of Will. That casts off 5. Nathan draws. That's going to spin top.
There's a Dak Faden in the top 3 there.
This is all on end step. Yeah, Dak on top there.
When you're drawing extra cards with the library, it only works when you have 7 cards, which means that you draw and then you draw for your turn, so you're at 9. You generally want to get to a spot where you can make a land drop, cast some card out of your hand, just like do something at sorcery speed. Dak Faden is a pretty good find on something like that. So it wouldn't be surprising to go for Dak on this turn. You also have the guaranteed value where you can immediately grab a Mox. Then you also have a mana advantage going forward. So when you cast your Notion Thief, if this works, you have Mana Drain backup because you have enough mana to start doing that. And you still have those Force of Wills.
What is the mana advantage doing for them? At some point, they're
for Marzka, it's Notion Thief plus Mana Drain.
Okay.
A lot of this stuff is like very low mana or free, but Mana Drain does cost mana. Notion Thief,
Snapcaster Mage. Dak Faden on the stack here. Then looks like we will have a fight. Now there's at least 2 Force of Wills in Nathan. Josh knows that Nathan has Force blue card, Mana Drain.
Yep.
If Josh is picking a fight here, is this a fight he thinks he can win, or is this just something he's fighting for?
Things definitely get worse if the Dak comes down. If you can get some of the Force of Wills out of the hand and push Marzka off of being able to activate Library, that's actually kind of a win.
Mana Drain from Josh. Nathan taps to draw a card with Library of Alexandria.
And that's important and good sequencing. Once you have fewer than 7 cards, you won't be able to Library. So when you have 7, before you do anything, you just activate it.
Force of Will exile away the Preordain. They're going to fight over this Mana Drain. And I like what Nathan did here. He actually let Snapcaster resolve and now is fighting over the Mana Drain so as to tax Josh's mana.
Yep.
Flusterstorm from Josh.
That's going to get the Force of Will. It can't counter the Dak Faden. It's just instance of sorceries. So
that's the hard part.
I'm not sure from this point if we want to commit anything else on the initial Mana Drain, though. Because once your resource, you get a little bit lighter, the Dak Faden doesn't matter a ton.
So he allows the counter to be won by Josh. The Dak Faden is mana drained. Marzka passes. So what he got out of this is he just got a trade of cards.
Yep.
Fire Ice drawn from Lalo, he'll pass.
Feels pretty good to trade when you're drawing an extra one off library every turn.
See, remember he has 3 mana drain mana this turn? So just can spend it on something.
Yeah, in his deck, that would be things like that 1 Teferi, some kind of Planeswalker. He is playing the 1 Monastery Mentor, so that'd be a good time to leverage that mana.
Ice, spending 2 of his 3 color, 1 of his 3 colorless mana. It's going to be cast. We have our first congratulations on a top 4. Number 2 seed Andy Marketon defeats Brian DeMars 2-0. Both players are playing shops. Andy moves on to the semifinals.
Yeah, higher seeded shops player winning in the mirror makes a lot of sense.
Josh, so Ice was targeting Volcanic Island. In response, Nathan will use that Volcanic Island to use Spin Sensei's Divining. No, to cast Brainstorm. Correct myself here.
A couple great things about the Ice play. You know about a mana drain. You're able to tap the blue source here, so you don't have to really mess with the mana drain on this turn. It's also you're using one of your free mana off of your mana drain.
Yeah.
So you're cashing that in. Now, if you're Lalo, you want to have some follow-up beyond that.
So, Ryan, one thing I'm noticing while playing this, it's hard. Do you have a good feel? Who is winning right now? Like, what's important?
The most important thing right now is the Library of Alexandria.
Okay. So it's just cards in hand is what we're looking at?
Cards matter a lot. In particular, when you're playing against a deck that's not trying to hit you with the combo, I suppose Monastery Mentor can be very explosive, but Marzka is the one playing the deck that has Tinker for Blightsteel Colossus. He's playing the deck that has Time Volt Voltaic Key. So not only is he the player that has these kind of combinations that you're drawing towards right now, he also just has card advantage going for him.
Well, Josh after is going to force a fight here. We have Jace the Mind Sculptor attempting to be made, spending the rest of that mana drain mana. Now, once again, I don't think this will resolve. We have Force plus blue card. Actually, blue card is going to be mana drain. He'll pitch that to Force of Will. See if Josh can fight back. He does not. Planeswalker's down. And Josh's hand is getting pretty dicey, Ryan. It's 3 lands and a Swords to Plowshares.
Well, one good thing he has accomplished, because that Jace got the Force of Will, it's going to take some time before Marzka can use Library again.
Yeah. Just 3 cards in Marx's hand, and he knows that one is Notion Thief. However, one of them is also Jace the Mind Sculptor, and I don't believe Josh has an answer to it just yet.
Yeah. It looks like lands and Swords to Plowshares in Josh's hand.
Exactly.
That's not going to do too much.
Nathan still got 3 taps off that Library of Alexandria. Building his own Ancestral Recall there. Top will spin into Dak Faden, number 2, Polluted Delta, and Force of Will.
And he'll be untapping with 6 mana here. Not quite enough to Jace plus Dak.
Well, he could, if he draws a land, he can Notion Thief plus Dak. That's probably too much, too greedy.
I mean,
so
the
far.
Mox you steal is going to be tapped in response. Yeah, you wouldn't need a land, you'd have 7 mana or whatever. You want to draw
2
spells a lot more than you want to draw lands.
4 mana. Nathan going to go for Jace the Mind Sculptor, and that's going to resolve. Nathan had a counter Force plus blue card backup for it. Big play, and now he'll go to work. Jace Brainstorms. Looks like he's certainly pulling away on cards. Now, what I'm looking at, Ryan, is to see how he's going to close.
One thing about Vintage is it doesn't take a lot to close the game.
It happens very quickly.
Yeah, well, once a player assembles kind of the way that they win the game, all of the ways are extremely effective at doing so. Time Volt plus Voltaic Key, it's not a ton of setup, and it just wins the game automatically if you get them both on the battlefield.
Jace down to 1. Snapcaster hits in. Pass here. Josh just on tap.
And the Snapcaster pressures the Jace, but from here, you're pretty fine just +2ing the Jace every turn. You can tread water that way.
He's going to Brainstorm the Jace again, so perhaps Snapcaster Mage can remove it. We've got so many more cards for Nathan. He's trying to build back up, it looks like, to that Library of Alexandria threshold.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes the Jace pretty expendable.
Remember, Nathan's deck is a 3 mana drain deck, so he has another mana drain in hand.
Yeah, one more mana drain than Josh is playing.
Ponder. It's been a while since Josh has presented a card that could be misstepped. We'll see if Nathan cares to do so. Or
Notion Thief is a good response.
Notion Thief. This is a big move by Nathan. The turn activates Josh's Swords to Plowshares. He's got to try to fight over this. Could be a game-breaking play.
This fight's very important for Josh. It's of much less consequence to Nathan.
This would turn it would turn Josh's draws into a recall for Nathan if this works. Instead of Josh, I was just drawing the one-off Ponder. Apologize there, but instead of Josh drawing the card, Nathan would draw it.
Yep. It's probably worth enough value, and Josh is resource light enough that it makes a lot of sense to fight over this counter war. You definitely could just hang tight, because I think that Nathan has a lot of other advantages going for him right now. You see he's spinning top, there's Ancestral Recall, and Tinker in the holdings. Those are pretty good ones, and he did get the Swords of Plowshares out of Josh's hand.
Right.
Now, stopping the Ponder is kind of important because there's going to be more redraws. Frequently, you'll be able to Force of Will, Mana Drain, whatever comes off the Ponder. But stopping it entirely will press more advantages for Nathan.
And I like that. Now that he has the Tinker set up, he just let Notion Thief, that can get hit by swords. Not a problem.
Yeah. And using the Mana Drain, the Force to defend your Blightsteel Colossus should roll the game up.
Well, Josh has a potential for a comeback. Top 3 cards does have Ancestral Recall in it. Neither player's attempted that yet.
That one's definitely worth fighting over. I think you'll see Mana Drain on that.
Snapcaster swings for 2, and Nathan lets Jace go. Not actually equipped to answer. We'll see another Snapcaster from Josh. These are the cards I was really looking for in this matchup.
Yep.
It's Josh's best resource. And he'll go for Time Walk. Nathan says, no thank you. I'll mana drain that, get 2 mana. Go. Nathan gets a turn. Draw. Is it the Tinker? I think it is.
I would assume that it's Tinker time. Yep, that's the card. May as well lead on that Ponder that he has. He has Force backup with Dak Phaeton.
There is Ponder.
Adding something like the 3rd Mana Drain to this holding would be extremely powerful.
Recall, Demonic Tutor, Preordain as the top 3. I just want to draw the Recall here, Ryan.
Yeah. Oh, 2 busted cards and a card that's also pretty busted.
Well, he took the Demonic Tutor. Now I got to ask what he's Demonic Tutoring for. It feels like he's going to try at some point. Now he's run Josh low on resources and can try to push this Tinker through.
Yeah.
A tap Divining Top. Can he get back up to 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. This Ancestral Recall resolves these back up to having Library on.
Not bad. Josh, as far as I know, has 2 lands in hand.
Yeah. Time for a reload. Nathan targets himself. This will put him to 7 cards. Now Library's on. Things are going Nathan Marks' way. Finds Voltaic Key.
All right, so Voltaic Key plus Time Vault, or plus Demonic Tutor assembles that, so he has that going for him. He has Tinker, so he can make a Blightsteel Colossus happen.
I don't want to draw the Blightsteel Colossus.
Yeah, that seems correct to me. Ooh, and now just peeled Flusterstorm, so that's going to be more protection here. And finally uses some of this Mana Drain mana. You see Voltaic Key being cast here.
Got an update here. Our number 1 seed, Eric Marek on Shops, defeats Jonathan Leon. So Eric will play the winner of this match.
And here's Tinker. Sack that Mox Jet, and yeah.
Josh doesn't have it.
That sets up Vault Key. Once the Voltaic Key resolves, you don't have to worry about mental misstep. You have counters to fight. Tinker out the Time Vault, and that'll close the game. That's why you see the concession. It was no longer Blightsteel. He actually assembled an infinite turns combo.
As you mentioned, you said once someone decides to win, it happens all of a sudden.
Yep.
Nathan Marzka takes game 1. Now, there's going to be some interesting stuff in the sideboards. Match like that is only going to get better. We'll have another game of that when we come back in just a minute. Marzka. And Ryan, if we were to look at something that actually decided that game, it felt like we're looking at card quantity.
Yeah, Library of Alexandria was pretty instrumental there.
So looking at sideboards, one thing about Legacy, or Vintage rather, is that a lot of the sideboards are committed to fighting against Dredge. Very powerful deck. If you don't have a sideboard for it, you'll lose the whole match.
Yep.
We see 3 Termod's Crypts in Joshua Lalo's sideboard, Nathan Marzka. He's got Termod's Crypts and Graph Digger's Cages. But are any of these cards good in the blue mirrors?
No, they don't really amount to very much here. The graveyard hate anyway. If we go down to the rest of the stuff.
Yeah, the rest of the cards.
For Josh Lalo, there's a couple Bifrost, a couple Pyroblast. That's actually a really big one.
Yeah, that seems great.
Wear Tear is quite solid. There's a reasonable number of artifacts in Marx's deck. Now, you can't hit Blightsteel Colossus, but you can break up Vault Key. Even hitting Moxen is not the worst thing in the world.
So Biforce, I know, is great against shops. Do you actually board it in this matchup too?
Probably not, and actually one of the biggest points against it is that it's a red card and not a blue card.
It doesn't pitch to force?
A marginal card that pitched to force, kind of a bigger deal. The instant speed on Wear Tear is a huge difference maker in that comparison, because Vault Key is frequently just set up on the same turn, and then they're able to just do it. So you want to be able to break that up on their turn.
That makes sense. Now, what about cards like Pithing Needle? You can hit one-man answer to Planeswalkers. That's really exciting. However, they play a lot of the same Planeswalkers.
Yeah, name is Voltaic Key, which is not the worst thing in the world.
Does Nathan ever have to just blind go for the combo? So my worry about that is the way Nathan won, sure, was Voltaic Key. But I felt like the way he actually won was being +7 cards. And at that point, whatever.
Yeah.
So do you see like how Pithing Needle wouldn't have solved that?
Correct.
It just would have made him take longer.
You also just go for a different way to win.
Right, you get Blightsteel. Maybe he'd find a Dax steal, I don't know, Dak Notion Thief something.
Yeah. There's a number of different ways to go down this. And for Nathan's side, you have more Artifact Hay. You have Ingature. That's really not going to play here. Flusterstorm's decent in the blue mirrors. I think Pyroblast is a decent amount better than Flusterstorm, but they're both quite good. He has one of each. Those will be coming in. And I don't think you're going to be reaching for any of these other cards.
Yeah. A lot of these cards really do seem like because Dredge and Shops are in the format, it just takes a lot of your sideboard out.
Yeah, you just really have to have a plan for these decks. Now, the blue decks have gotten a ton of new tools as of late that make you less afraid of Dredge abstractly, but having cards that win the game is pretty important. Also, in general, the blue decks, they tend to bias against each other more than they bias for other matchups, which means in the blue matchups, you don't really have a lot of space to be sideboarding, just because all of your cards are good and they're coherent and they make sense in these kinds of matchups.
I suppose when most of your deck are cards that are on the restricted list, why would you board any of them out? They're better than whatever else you could be playing.
Yep, exactly. And also, Dredge and Shops, they do things that are fundamentally very odd that just make some of your cards worse, whereas the blue decks, they're just okay, these are good cards against good cards that are all trying to do similar things. So how much worse can they really be post-sideboard?
All right, we have our game 2. Now, Nathan on the draw has a 5-card hand. Scry to the bottom. Certainly would hurt something like Library of Alexandria. We'll see what else he can do here, however. There are very powerful cards that could catch him up.
Yes. Yeah, Vintage tends to be about the swingiest format. Just so many of the effects just do so much. For a very little mana investment.
Preordained from Nathan. That'll get a mental misstep from Josh.
Paid Life. Okay.
Yeah, what do you think
I was
about
going
that?
to say he might have had an end step Ancestral Recall. Typically, you would kind of go for that upkeep, but I guess just playing it. Yeah, the life totals are not a huge consequence in this matchup.
Land number 2 and a Mox, which accelerates Josh up to 3. Makes 3 mana, passes. We'll see Mana Crypt from Nathan. That can count for 2 cards if it works. Now Nathan has 4 lands. He's just going to go straight for Jace the Mind Sculptor. He's checking him on Force. Or Pyroblast, but Josh has one.
Yeah, that's quite a bit better than Force in that spot.
If Nathan wasn't on a 5-card hand this game, do you think he would have still made a play as aggressive as that? Or is he really just like trying to hit home runs at this point?
Vintage is a format that actually largely forces you to shove in a lot of spots. Part of that is that you have so many high-impact spells that you'll generally be able to untap, just cast something else that's very impactful. And what Nathan has going for him is he has a Treasure Cruise, so cards in Graveyard are actually a resource.
Sure.
So being aggressive with that generally just is going to behoove him.
Here's Sensei's Divining Top. Snapcaster Mage from Josh. That Mental Misstep looking pretty nice.
Yep.
Mana Drain back from Nathan. On Snapcaster Mage, is it going to work?
So here's
that
an interesting
does,
question.
but how about another Snapcaster?
I guess it doesn't matter anymore. I was going to ask if Nathan announced his combat step because of mana drain. I think Vintage players are usually pretty savvy on this, but it adds the mana at the next main phase. That's your second main phase.
Okay. Back over to Josh. Nathan's down to 1 card. That card is Treasure Cruise. Snapcaster swings, so it's not a bad one.
In fact, it's restricted.
Right. Well, on this board in particular, Josh also only has 1 card. So they're saying odd numbers deal damage. Nathan down to 14 off the crypt. 1 card each. Nathan going to shove for Treasure Cruise? Let's see. I'd assume so. 1, 3.
It doesn't get better if you wait.
Full Delve, Treasure Cruise. Ancestral, yeah, it's going to work. Nathan reloads. And we might have a game.
So a Force of Will, a Mox. Not sure what the third card was.
Notion Thief.
It's not a bad one.
Another swing by Snapcaster. And we will actually see
a Braid.
A Braid.
Just good in every format.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
The 5-mana Treasure Cruise for Josh.
And Force of Will pitching Notion Thief for Nathan. He wants to be the only guy with Treasure Cruise. Now they're both off the top. About the same amount of mana. And
off the top with the Mana Crypt is a pretty significant liability, though.
Yeah, Nathan says go. Let's keep moving. It looks like there's a Mana Drain picked up by Josh. Nathan down to 10 off Mana Crypt. In these matchups, do you just not play your Mana Crypt sometimes? This is going to kill him.
Yeah, the payoff for Jace the Mind Sculptor was so big that it made sense to attempt it. But yeah, you do get punished.
3 more, Nathan to 7.
Yikes.
He's got to do something.
At least it takes 3 hits, right? Yeah. At least he's not on 6.
Yeah, okay. He's got Mana Drain and Mental Misstep. Chip, chip, chip. Oh, even number. Nathan is safe for now.
Nathan would love to draw a Tinker,
Jace,
which would let him sacrifice the Mana Crypt no matter what.
He's got Jace. He does not have enough mana for Jace plus Mana Drain. He doesn't have enough blue. So he casts Jace, Mana Drain on Josh's side, but Mox Emerald does not help, so the drain just succeeds.
Bad Mox.
4 colorless for Josh.
We'll find out if there's a payoff here. Usually there is.
Brainstorm, Mental Misstep. Nathan paying the mana for it.
Yeah, it's 7. That's an entire Mana Crypt hit.
Now what does Josh have as a follow-up? Preordain. Top card is Ancestral Recall. Sure. He doesn't have blue mana, though. He's got Obs on Moxes, and he's got 7 mana, none of it's blue.
He'll get it.
Yeah, but nobody just can't do it right now.
Oh, no. I wonder if he'll get another turn.
4 p.m. sealed players, your round 3 pairs.
Search for Escanta.
Nice. More standard cards.
Another card is good in every format.
Back over to Nathan. 5 now. He's down to 4. I don't think Josh is going to mill over the Ancestral Recall, though.
I would probably keep that one on top.
Scry off search. That's an A call. He's not going to mill it.
I like that he announced the trigger, though.
I say I like this
Let's
one.
look at the card I preordained to the top again. Oh, I still want it.
Nathan down to 1. This grip's going to end the game.
Yeah, don't
Says
love to
go.
see it, but it happens often enough.
Mill and a draw for Josh. You see he's not even casting the Ancestral Recall because where the board is right now, there's no need.
Yep.
And Mana Crypt is going to do the full 20, and we're on to game 3.
Well played.
Yeah, I mean, I heard Vintage was the format of broken things and fast kills, so I think it makes sense that 21 damage off a Mana Crypt is just about how it ends.
I think Broken Things Fast Kills, I guess variance is a word that you could put in that mix as
Yeah,
well.
if he'd only rolled even numbers for the rest of the game, he wouldn't have lost.
I think you should consider that strategy in Game 3.
What a weird game. Well, it's evened up. We're going to have a third game when we come back. I got to play Magic the Gathering Trivia with Eric, actually, Thursday evening.
Were you on the same team?
We were on the same team.
How'd you do?
Medium.
Nice. Which of
Medium.
you was less useful to the team?
We were bad at the technology, so it was a multiple choice. You had to put it into your phone, but once you picked an answer, you couldn't change your answer, and we were way too trigger happy.
You got nervous thumbs.
A lot of times I'd be thinking about one and be like, I think it's C, and look over and like, it's already got like D highlighted, and I was like, never mind. That happened a lot.
Made a few dexterity
Not
errors.
always. Yeah, we. It's hard.
It's a bad way to go.
It can happen every time.
Hey, you had to have been right at least some of those, right?
Yeah. Sometimes I said that, and then it turned out the guy who clicked it was right, and I was like, oh, good call.
Yeah.
Good call. Probably most of the time.
It's like Nathan's taking a mulligan again. There's a lot of ways to gas back up in Vintage, and frankly, if your hand's not a little bit busted, you should ship it back.
You got to have some power in the opener, literally.
It doesn't hurt. It's not a hard requirement.
So if my opener was Search for Azcanta, Teferi, Snapcaster Mage, Ponder, and 3 lands, I'm playing the wrong format.
Hey, you got to ponder. Ponder's restricted. You can snap it
kind of like my
back.
legacy deck.
Yeah. That hand is quite a bit on the weak side. Speaking on the weak side, Nathan going to 5.
It's going to be 2 in a row, 2 trips to 5 in a row for Nathan after an impressive Game 1 win.
Yeah, there were a lot more fireworks in that one. Game 2, quite a bit less eventful. There was some dice rolled, and then one of the players died because of the outcomes of the die rolls.
You shouldn't create a Mana Crypt. It's a dangerous tool.
It is.
This artifact is an artifact of great power, but with it comes great cost.
It's cursed.
You do not want to enter the Mana Crypt. 5 cards for Nathan. Scries to the bottom. Here we go. Good mocks, as Ryan, you were saying.
Big fan of good mocks.
He's got Mana Drain and Treasure Cruise, and looks like one other.
Yeah, good mocks honestly really makes this hand because of that mana drain.
Flusterstorm Mana Drain. And Treasure Cruise.
Not super likely you have to fire off a Mana Drain on turn 1, but it's good protection against a lot of the things that can happen in the format.
I think like the worst case scenario would be if Josh just makes a Library of Alexandria now and says go.
That would be a nightmare.
Like, oh, library, go.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I will draw an extra card.
You're going to just hang out. Good mocks on both sides.
Good Mox Mirror.
Ponder for Josh. Snapcaster Mage, Mox Jet, and a land. Is Mox Jet second to best Mox?
I really hate to say it, but Monastery Mentor really pushed Mox Pearl up in the power rankings.
That's not even Grixis.
It's horrible. I hate it. But Mox Jet's at worst the third best. It might very well still be the second best with the restriction of Mentor. That's kind of a big deal.
Is Emerald's bad Mox?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Emerald's garbage Mox.
Was Pearl bad Mox before Mentor?
Oh, big time.
Okay. Land.
Like,
decent Mox. Go.
Mox Emerald casts Oath of Druids. You know.
Yeah.
Leovold's a fine card, actually.
Should we play it? No Leovold's in the top 8, but I wouldn't mind us seeing one.
Yeah.
Nathan draws and passes back. He's behind on mana. And Josh gonna fire off Ancestral Recall. He knows it's gonna get answered. It's Flusterstorm, so just putting it into a known counter spell.
Yeah, playing into Flusterstorm specifically, that's not pretty.
Gonna mental misstep one of the 2 Flusterstorm copies and pay for the other. Sure.
Yeah, that gets you there.
Yeah, Nathan has Force blue card. He just has to, right? If he lets us, can he win through it? And he says no. He's gonna pitch Mana Drain to Force.
You really don't want to fall too far behind on cards. It's a tough spot, especially because Nathan mulliganed twice. That Force of Will puts him down another card, but the alternative is going down 2 more.
How bad is it that Josh actually got his A-Call countered, though, however? It means that only one deck has an Ancestral in it?
That's true.
Now, Josh just has Snapcaster Mages, so I guess.
Right. And don't know. We'll see. This main phase fetch suggests to me that Josh is going to do something. If he has Jace the Mind Sculptor here, that would be a tremendous win for him.
Yeah, he knows Nathan's hand is just Treasure Cruise. I guess whereas it stands, Nathan's hand just isn't really functional anymore.
And I think Josh's hand is not only the Jace the Mind Sculptor, but he has just Force as leftovers.
At least one.
Or Force
Jace
something.
the Mind Sculptor. Force something that pitches to Force. Draws bad Mox. 2 more. It's okay, still.
Is that Dig Through Time?
Yes, it is.
That is a powerful magic card. And so Josh has Dig Through Time in hand. Nathan has had Treasure Cruise, but he's a ways off of having the graveyard. 3 cards in the graveyard here and just 2 mana sources.
All right. Shops are down in one of our other matches. Stephen Quinn, the 3 seed, defeats Chris Plogue. So far, the higher seed, full sweep. And if Josh wins this, it'll be 1 through 4 in the semis.
That does happen a fair amount of the time in the Vintage.
Quinn is on Paradoxicals this weekend, defeating Shops. He'll have to do it again in the semis.
This weak draw there for Nathan, just another land, but he has to play it because it inches him closer to that attempting that Treasure Cruise, which we already know, if Josh cares, won't be good.
Is there any thought to Fate Sealing with Jace here, or in a format like this, is Brainstorm just too powerful?
Well, it's not only that Brainstorm is too powerful, it's that you put a card to the bottom, and then there's just way more busted stuff.
The next one's good too?
Yeah, there's just too many things that can go wrong, and it doesn't win the game fast enough, whereas Brainstorming every turn very likely will be easy to convert into a game
So
win.
Jace is really just like a Brainstorm engine in Vintage?
Pretty much. Yeah, one-sided Howling Mine plus.
Which it is oftentimes in Legacy. Sometimes we'll see other modes in Legacy. There doesn't really seem like there's creatures to unsummon with Jace.
Yeah, there's very few. There's some. I mean, Blightsteel Colossus comes to mind for this matchup. That we saw in Game 1, Nathan had Jace to Josh's Snapcaster Mage. You don't want to bounce that one.
Dig Through Time from Josh. And look at this. He's willing to spend an extra mana on Dig Through Time just to leave that recall in the graveyard.
Yeah, definitely worth it.
He's a Snapcaster Mage deck. Let's keep. That's one we want to keep around.
I think that watching your opponent resolve Dig Through Time is one of the most disheartening things in Magic.
Let me decide how you're dead.
Yeah.
Hold on, I have to figure it out.
I get 2 of these? It's
At least
just
with Treasure
unreal.
Cruise, they draw the cards right away.
Yeah. There's no time for despair.
Yeah. Mental misstep the draw from Nathan, and he can't do it. He's going to extend the hand. And with that, Josh Lalo moves on. Number 4 seed with Jeskai Control. So it's going to be the 1, 2, 3, and 4 making it into the semis. We have Eric Marich on Shops. Josh Lalo winning 2 games to 1 with Jeskai Control.